We're live.
Okay. Hello. I'm Marjorie Desmond from Desmond Law. And over this past summer, I found online a resource that I thought would be really, really beneficial to my clients and reached out to the company and met Jon Braddock, who actually is in town here in Scottsdale. And he has an amazing product. I don't stand to gain by his product personally. I just thought it was a great resource and something that certainly my clients might benefit from. And so I just wanted to introduce you to Jon and to his product and learn a little bit more about kind of what brought him to create his company. So, Jon, how did you get started and why?
Great question. Thank you. Thank you for having me, and hi to all your clients and followers out there. Well, interesting. Our company, My Life and Wishes, essentially we are a end of life planning and document storage platform with the goal of making things easier for your family, at your passing. And how it was created was about 7 years ago. My father-in-law died. He lived up the street from us unexpectedly. And we had never been through the scenario of having, a loved one pass and having to deal with their estate. And holy cow. The process took us over 10 months of trying to track things down, finding all the bank accounts, access, how do we log into things. He was an old IBM guy, so he was very technologically savvy, but we couldn't find logins, passwords, challenge questions to get to things. Where were the life insurance policies? And then when we found, boxes and boxes of old policies, calling insurance companies to find out if they're still valid. Same with the will. It was like we couldn't locate the will and all this. So thankfully, it was a saver. But the time we actually found it, I said to Michelle, my wife, I said, "Honey, I got good news. I have bad news." And again, we're in our 50s, right? So she said, "Well, what's the good news?" I said, "The good news is I found the will." She said, "Well, what's the bad news?" I said, "The bad news is you have to move to Milwaukee and live with Uncle Ed and Aunt Jean."
And
That's how
I do
old the
see that
will
a
was.
lot with clients who come in with very old estate planning documents, and that's just a good reminder that people should make sure that their documents are up to date, that people can find them, which is one of the great things that your website offers, and so that they don't end up spending time digging through things. I had one of my best friends from high school just recently went through that last summer, and she was finally able to find a will. Her mother had been a hoarder, and it's just such a time consuming and grueling and emotionally taxing process, just awful.
Well, it is. I always refer to it as the massive scavenger hunt. And when we were going through it, it was like, you know, unbelievable. Michelle would be up the street at night, going through things, digging through things, coming back saying, "Oh my God," and the stress, the confusion, the frustration, which are emotions that shouldn't be there in a time when you're grieving.
And it
You
sounds
should
like
have.
you had a very close relationship with your father-in-law where he was physically close to you, and you probably
Yes.
had frequent interaction with him. So you probably knew more than some people who have parents who are living far away, where maybe they would have to travel to clean up the mess.
Mhm.
And thankfully, you were at least in close proximity.
Yes, and I can't imagine, had he been on the other side of the state, or worse yet, in another state, because we had to work too at the same
Right.
time. But when can you contact, banks and insurance companies and all these places to find out? It's during working
During the
hours,
workday. Right.
and no one wants to go through that. But he always thought. I got another good 5 years left in me, those kind of things. And it's like, no,
Well,
no
and
one, no one
no
expects
one,
to die tomorrow. But
right.
sadly, here where we live in the Phoenix area, we're going to turn the news on tonight, and somebody was in an accident on the 101 or 202, and they didn't make it.
And that's the thing. I mean, the sad thing is we're going to all die with a 100% certainty. It's just none of us know really when. So it's just having a plan to know that whenever that day happens, your family is able to put the pieces together and figure out kind of where your important documents and important information is. And
Yeah.
and I do want to just for our viewers here show Jon's book, Click Here When I Die, which does kind of talk about his journey to creating this company, and with some humor and some statistics, and it's well done. So that's also a good resource, I think, for helping people understand, what you could end up putting your family through if you don't get these things squared away ahead of time.
Yeah, thank you. And a lot of people ask me when about the book, is like, is it a Debbie Downer and that kind of stuff? I say absolutely not. I mean, there's a lot of humor. I mean, it's going to happen to all of us. So we may as well enjoy it. But I hope some people might order it, read it, share it, provide feedback on it. But that was really the creation of the My Life and Wishes platform, because after we were going through this, and our children at the time, some were still in high school, some in college, and thought, oh my God, I mean, if something happened to
Yeah,
Michelle
what
and
would
I,
we be leaving behind for our kids?
oh, and our kids wouldn't have a clue. They wouldn't know who my estate planning attorney was. They wouldn't know who my accountant was. They wouldn't know, life insurance or what bank accounts I
Or
had
where to
or
find old tax returns, or
exactly. And so I had this thought that, what if I didn't make it home tonight? At the touch of a button, click here when I die,
right.
um, my family would have everything they need to know all in one secure spot, from my funeral wishes to my eulogy and obituary notes, right down to, what to do with the cat,
Right.
um,
Right.
copies of the wills and trusts and documents and everything stored and secured in one place, and take that, what would be year-long scavenger hunt, and compress it down into a few weeks and be able to have that
Well, and
information.
the beauty of it is, I mean, I help my clients put together that information and make sure that they have the legal things covered and some additional non-legal things, but it ends up in a binder. I do, give my clients a thumb drive with their documents on it, but they may or may not have distributed that to family members, and especially when you've got family members across the country. Maybe they don't have access right away to your home to find the binder which has all the documents in it. So so why don't you show us a little bit about, show us the platform. I've used it and have found it to be very user friendly, and a great place to just kind of remind you of what kind of information your family might not know about you.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll do a quick screen share, and you should be able to see that, right? So I'll just go through quickly. I put a few notes in here. People ask me all the time, why planning? Why do we need to get it done? And I always answer that question with a question and say, what do you want the experience to be like for your family after you're gone? I mean, would they know what your final wishes are, where all your stuff is located? How do you access it? And most of the people I speak with, the answer always is nope. You know,
Well, and I
I
think
ask people, does your
we
spouse know how to take down your Facebook account? And the answer is usually no. And, I'm not alone when I say I have several friends who are deceased that still have active Facebook accounts. And I'm sure, all your viewers do too.
Yes, yes, no, I'm sure. I think my father does. Um, so, and the question is, I mean, even between spouses, as you say, I mean, we have so many passwords in our life for various accounts, financial accounts, multiple, social media accounts, again, multiple, and access to, companies that we use for whatever, for the bills that we pay and our bill pay and our, all of those things. a lot of times usually we don't even know our passwords. We've got them saved on our computer, on our phone. They're pre-filled for us. And a lot of times they're different from each other. So it's not like it used to be in the early days of computing where there was one password. Now you might have 50, 100 passwords and you might not know them all. And
Right.
so it's nice to have them in one space, especially
And
because you're not going to be able to give all of those passwords to your spouse. And particularly with security being what it is, the passwords change like every 6 months or so. They're asking for a new password.
exactly. And it's a great place to keep those things up to date and stored. And I talk to people and say, well, I use a password manager. And it's like, that's awesome, because so do I. But still, someone's going to need to know how to access your LastPass or your OnePass and know that password in order to get to all the others. So they have to be able to get that in there. So what are the things that are important that we have to protect? It's, all those important documents. It's wills, trusts, insurance contracts, your financial and investment accounts, tax returns, all your website login information, the online bill pay and recurring pay, Amazon Prime, Hulu, Netflix, YouTube TV, you, you know, um, yeah. And what are your final wishes? When we started the company and on our website, if people were to go there, which is www.mylifeandwishes.com, we have a 2-minute video that explains, what happened to us and why we did this. And the gentleman who filmed it before we started, he was, very artistic, obviously. And he said, well, tell me about what you do so I can get the theme and the flavor right for what we want to do. And so I told him, and he just was like white in the face. And I was like, Nick, are you okay? And he said, yeah. He said, I wish that I had known Mom wanted to be cremated before I buried her. And he didn't
Oh,
find out till about a year later. And so, yeah, I mean, God. So,
oh dear.
and having all this information accessible 24/7 from any place, easily recoverable, and easing the burden, on the family. So it's going to eliminate the scavenger hunt, eliminate the additional stress, frustration, anxiety. It's all about making things easier to allow people to, click here when I die. So
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about the encryption on your website? Because I think a common fear is that if I put every password that I have to every financial account, all my documents, my social security number, my address, all of that information in one location, you got to guard that location really well. So tell us a little bit about that.
exactly. Well, before we actually launched the platform, we spent well over a year working in development to make sure we had the strongest security possible. So for us, security is not a feature; it's actually our foundation on how we were built. So we utilize end-to-end encryption, ensuring that all your data is encrypted throughout any point of travel. So whether I'm working on my desktop, I'm uploading it, it's encrypted here, it's encrypted on the way up, it's encrypted at rest. And when I go to bring it back down, it's also encrypted. That encryption uses, and yeah, and I had to learn what these things meant, but it uses an SHA 256 encryption with 2048 bits of encrypting power. So what that means in simple English is that in order to access my account, or encrypted account, someone would have to figure out a 617 digit character.
Wow.
Um, so, and each account is separate. So we don't have a server. Our servers are in the cloud with Microsoft Azure, one of the the biggest, obviously. 24/7, physical and biometric protections with firewalls, intrusion detection system, redundant backup systems, and everyone's storage is separate. So if a person were able to access my account, figuring out a 617-digit code, they would access one account, not inside, like when Target was breached and everyone got their credit card information.
Right.
The other two features, or actually three, we use AES 256 encryption, which is what the banks and the US government utilize. We strongly encourage our users to use the two-factor authentication, which means when you log into your account, you'll receive a text message on your phone or an email with a code to enter as another layer of protection to get in. And we are also what's known as a zero knowledge company, which means no one at our company can see anything that a user puts in to the information. So if someone were to call and say, hey, I put this in there, can you pull that document up for me? The answer is no, we can't. It's totally on them. So I would never say something couldn't be intruded, but we've taken every measure possible to ensure that it can't be. So when someone goes inside the platform, we've broken everything out very intuitively between personal, financial, family, advisor contacts, all your documents and accounts, which is your wills, your trust, your insurance policies, your tax returns, all your website logins, end of life wishes, pets, any veterans benefits within each section. If you share an account with your spouse, have a co-owner, which many do, there's 3 tabs that populate under every section. There's one for John, there's one for Michelle, and there's one for shared. So if we're entering in banking information, she may have some bank accounts, I may have some bank accounts, and then we may have some joint accounts that would be in the platform. So as you can see here, Joe, Jane, and then joint accounts. This is where you can provide your bank accounts, what kinds you have, the numbers, the login information, links out to the websites to help family be able to access this information. And under financial, there's going to be your banks. It's going to be loans, credit cards, investments, retirement plans, pension plans.
And what I love about this, I mean, of course, I put together asset information because that's, the business I'm in is distributing assets. But I like the fact that you also have loans and credit cards in there, bills in there. It's just a good place to kind of bring all of your assets and liabilities together to see in one place, as well as other personal aspects that, people would care about if something happened to you.
Exactly. And it really helps the family because when, if you have to close things down, it's like, how do we contact the gas company? How do we log in? What about the utilities? What about the cable company? What about the pool service so they don't show up again next week? And,
Right.
and the story I always use is I read 2 newspapers every day. They don't show up in the driveway. They show up on my iPad. And unless someone knows how to get into my iPad and knows how to access the Arizona Republic and the Wall Street Journal, it's going to keep hitting on my credit card, which taking more money away from family until they can shut it down.
Right. And there've been those crazy stories about, someone who had a large bank account who died and no one knew he died, as kind of a reclusive person. 20 years later, his life had been kind of running without him and money had been being taken out of his account for 20 years before anyone realized that he had passed. It's crazy.
It's insane. Well, and unclaimed property also. Over $1 billion in life insurance has gone unclaimed. And the reason for that is life insurance is only as good as if someone knows you had it. And insurance companies aren't reading obituaries trying to find out if people who died are people they should be paying money to, right?
Right. I'm sure if they can avoid paying the money out, they will.
Exactly.
The state of Arizona has a very large Department of Unclaimed Property, and that's money that is sitting in an account, that isn't an insurance policy payout, but just is being held in an account or a safe deposit box where no one knows who this property is supposed to go to, and they turn it into the state. And there's a very large fund. I think it's in the $4 billion range in Arizona alone of unclaimed property. So that is,
Wow.
I don't think anybody, you'd much rather have it go to your friends and relatives than the state and just sit there. So something to avoid.
Well, as you probably read in my book, so when my father-in-law passed, we found a safe deposit box key. We had no idea if he had a safe deposit box, what bank it was. So, we went to the bank where he banked, Nope, he didn't have a safe deposit box, but it was just kind of nagging at Michelle. It's like, well, why would he hang on to the key if he doesn't have a box somewhere? So she searched, and after 2 weeks of calling Chamber of Commerce and that, she tracked down a bank, which had originally been at, which was acquired twice and was now Chase Bank on the other side of town, where he had no accounts, but he has a safe deposit box. And after
Wow.
and after working with our estate planning attorney and getting the POA and everything put together, Michelle accessed the safe deposit box, and inside was 752 shares of IBM stock.
Wow.
Right? And can't hardly imagine if she had just said, okay, well, obviously he doesn't have it, and just toss the key.
Right. Amazing. Amazing.
Right. So again, the other documents, you can put whatever you can think of in here. So, copy of the birth certificate, driver's license, your advanced directives or living will, military discharge papers. I encourage people to put notes to family. It's I always
I was
say,
just going to mention that.
I was going to say, if I knew I wasn't going to be here tomorrow, what would I tell my wife today? What would I tell my kids today? Some afternoon, it's raining, you're feeling a little depressed, write that note and upload
That's
it.
right. No, I encourage my clients to do so. It's a very difficult thing to do emotionally for people, but I mean, what a gift you leave for your family if you do.
Exactly. And so you can upload all those documents under shared. You have your proof of ownership documents, deed to the house, all those things. Again, available to you if you need them 24/7 from your smartphone, right? We were at the bank recently filling out POD, payable on death, with our banker, and she needed the social security numbers of our children. We have 6. Okay. Ordinarily, the conversation goes like this. Oh, gosh, I'll call you when I get home and I'll give those to you.
Right.
We were able to, from a smartphone, log into our account and be able to provide that information right on the spot.
Now, what you're showing here on the screen, I love this feature. So why don't you explain what we're seeing there?
Yes, this is an authorized users area where you can add authorized users. This would be a responsible adult child, could be your attorney, financial advisor, someone that you trust with the account. And you can make them an authorized user, meaning they can access this information. And as we get older, obviously, we want to have that as one of our adult children or close friend or brother or mother, somebody. And what you can do is you can determine what they can see and or edit within the platform. Most often, what people do is they'll toggle on, they can see everything. They can edit nothing, right? Because you don't want someone to go in and change something that you have within the platform.
Right.
Unless you're managing this for your elderly parent, then you may have full access to everything within the account, so you can go in and update things and handle their financials.
And that access is something you can change. So if you have a falling out with the person you've designated as your trustee and your power of attorney that you've put in there, you can change that, right?
Right. Well, being the father of 6 and knowing kids, so we have a safety feature built in. So if a person goes to access another person's account, there's a box that pops up and says, I'll use my case. It says, say to my son, it'll say, hey, Nick, you're about ready to access your dad's account. Do you wish to continue? He will be notified. So that gives them the cancel button, and they're gone and nothing happens. If the person proceeds, then I get an email right away that says my account was accessed by the individual at this time at this IP address. So then I can take the action I need to with that. I can say, hey, what are you doing in the account? Or maybe I'm fine with it because he was changing something on my behalf. But I can go in at any time and I can delete any authorized user or turn off their access to whichever. Total control over your account.
Now, what do you recommend that people do about accessing this account? Like, do you recommend people keep a password somewhere, or?
I do. It's really two things. One, if you have a trusted, person, you give them access to it. Now, as I mentioned, I have 6 kids. I don't trust any of them. No, just kidding. But what we provide is when a person becomes a user, we'll actually send them what we call a fulfillment kit. It comes out in the mail, traditional mail, not email, kind of with a welcome letter and some tips on getting started. We also provide this card and this envelope. And so my daughters don't ever want to have the conversation with me of, what if daddy dies, right? Mm-hmm. So here's the conversation. I've logged all the information here, how to access my account. It's got this nice envelope that goes in. It's sealed up. And the girls know that if something happens to me, in my dresser drawer on the right-hand side, under the socks, you will find this. It will give you everything you need to know. And because I'm a little bit anal, they also know I have another one of these here in my office in the desk drawer under the thing where I keep the pens, just in case something happened to it. So that's what I encourage people to do. If you don't have, if you have a co-owner, that's great, because Michelle can access our account and so can I.
Right.
But then someone else needs to know, which is why we utilize that card. If I were single, I'd either use the card or, again, one of the adult children. I would provide them with access. So
that would be something that you could put that card in the estate planning binder with the original documents, and which says, estate planning on your bookshelf. And that would be a logical place for family to look for that information.
Exactly. One of the things that, why I wanted this available to people is that, like my friend Nick, who, wish he knew his mom wanted to be cremated, right? When someone dies, and when my father-in-law died, we were to the house within an hour. The police were there. The EMTs were there. We're waiting for the coroner to come, which seemed like weeks. I think it was only an hour or two. My father-in-law is still on the floor in his bedroom. And they start asking you questions. Well, what funeral home should we take him to? It's kind of like, I don't know, there's 6 in town, right?
Right.
So you're all of a sudden launched into trying to make decisions that you hope would be pleasing, right?
Right. And you can't say, well, let me get back to you on that either. It's kind of urgent.
Right. And within 24 hours, you're sitting across from a funeral director in a funeral home. And now you're, going through, okay, what kind of ceremony is it going to be? Is it going to be religious? Do you want to do it at church? Do you want to do it here at the funeral home? And then we got to start, is it a burial? Is it a cremation? And then you start going through, and what about flowers? And what about internment? And it's mind-boggling.
Well, and I mean, certainly in my own family's experience, I mean, everybody wants to please the deceased person. And so there's people err on the side of it being more expensive than it needs to be, not less. So that can be exceedingly costly, like into the tens of thousands, and may not have been costs that the deceased person wanted you to incur.
Exactly. So that's why I tell people to write this stuff down, provide obituary notes, some of your personal history. My mother-in-law, 2 years after my father-in-law had died, kept saying she wanted to redo the obituary, put it back in the paper because we missed stuff. And it's like, because we had to, put it together. So take that burden off your family. And, I talking to someone the other day, and they said, well, there's just so much stuff and I got to get it all together and stuff. And I said, you know what? You're right. There is a lot of stuff. But you know where it is. Imagine how difficult it would be for your family trying to track this stuff down.
Right. And recreate, when was the year that dad graduated from, whatever school or got whatever award, or, I mean, trying to recreate that 20, 30, 50 years later is incredibly difficult
Oh,
for people
absolutely.
who weren't there.
Right, right, right.
Okay, so
So
why don't you tell us just a little bit about how much this costs? Because I'm sure people are wondering.
yeah, well, for people that are not friends and clients of Marjorie Desmond, they pay $79 a year subscription fee, ongoing. For friends, family, and clients of Desmond Law, we provide a 20% perpetual discount. I'm terrible at math, but that's like, I don't know, $63 or something like that, ongoing. So, you know, uh, less than a cup of coffee a week, right? So,
Yeah,
uh,
well, thank you so much. And that, gives people the peace of mind of having things all in one place. I know in my own family, my dad had a stroke and also
hmm,
had four safes in his house. And
wow.
after his stroke, he had no idea how to open those safes. Well, fortunately, my mom had given me the combination to those safes over 20 years before, and she had died 20 years before. So I just happened to have kept those combinations because I knew how important it was that someone have them, that I have them. And I mean, and there came a day when my dad wanted to get into one of the safes, didn't know how, and I was able to say, well, I actually have the combinations and I can help you get in there. And so you just never know when that day might come. So even for your own peace of mind and having access to your own stuff, you might need that account someday.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like I say, I mean, it's all designed to make things easier, for those you love. Take that stress away from them. But I have to tell you, I use mine. I log into my account at least once a week because I need a password. I need something. Our mail-in ballots this year. So I wanted to check online if my ballot was received and processed in the presidential election, and I didn't have my driver's license with me. I had left the house without my wallet. I'm in the office. I just logged into my Life and Wishes account and got a copy because I have a scanned copy of my driver's license in there and had it. So, you know, it's a good tool for me while I'm alive and a much better tool for my family after I'm gone.
Well, and even, you can think of circumstances where, what if someone had stolen your wallet? Or what if someone, or you had lost your wallet, or someone had stolen your purse? You would know which credit card companies you need to call to cancel those numbers. So it's
Right.
just, anyway, I love your product. I think it's very useful. It certainly aligns with the advice that I give my clients, and certainly the heartache that I sometimes see when people come to me after someone's passed and they're saying, what on earth? Um, so thank you so much for giving us some time today to hear about your product and your website and your book. And just congratulations on such a great, useful product. I know it'll help a lot of families.
Thank you very much. If there's anything I can do for anyone, they can reach directly out to me.
Great. Thank you so much.
You bet.